Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Undiscovered Decade, a podcast where we take a look back at 30 years before this month to see what anniversary it is for some sort of hidden gem. If you think back to what you were doing if you were alive in June 1993, I'm sure you would have been excited to see the biggest film ever before. This film reached the heights that had never been achieved before in box office success. It won multiple Academy Awards in the same year that its director would win Best Picture and several other prestigious awards for Schindler's List. Jurassic Park was a behemoth that could not be stopped.
Rawr.
But there's another film that came out that week. So it made the most sense to look into what that was. And it was a little film called The Music of Chance. Starred James Spader and Mandy Patinkin as two drifters that are forced to build a wall. It's basically the entire plot.
Yeah.
So we'll get into a little bit more of what actually happens, but had you guys ever heard of this even?
Not at all.
Never heard of it.
Yep. No. Not a surprise. I mean, there's counter programming, and then there's being buried by the biggest film in history.
Well, it was released
For a hidden gem, guys, for a hidden gem that we've never heard of, would you say this movie's just another brick in the wall?
Get him out of here. Get him out.
Yeah.
to be released in the shadow of Jurassic
Can
Park,
I-
though, is a fate I would not wish on anyone.
Get him out of there.
But
Hey, but
Yeah.
their wall wasn't electric powered, so you didn't have to worry about it breaking down and letting dinosaurs out.
This was probably not even in a 1/100th of the theaters that
Yeah.
Jurassic Park was in.
this is
I guarantee.
this is very much like an art film by today's standards.
Oh, it's yeah.
It was
it's
shot
definitely
in
an
Even
indie.
4:3.
that standards. Yeah, it was
This would be a
4-3.
screamer.
All right, well,
Uh,
let's shall we explain the movie first?
Sure.
First of all, the movie tricked me at the beginning because I thought that score was diegetic,
Hmm.
or I thought it was on the. It was I thought it was part of the score, and then it turns out it was part of the radio.
You know, I
I thought it was doing something playful with the filmmaking technique at first. I was like, oh wait, that's a track he's listening to.
that's
At the core, the story is about two good guys in a bad situation.
Whoa,
true.
A very bad situation. Like the
Actually, or are
worst.
they two bad guys in a good situation? Oh no, they face
Who's
off
to
against
say?
two bad guys in a good situation.
are any of us good or bad?
It's ambiguous whether Mandy Patinkin's actually good because he alludes to something in his backstory, but you're not quite sure if he's telling the truth or not because they are both gamblers. All
It's
four.
funny.
That's
I looked into, I guess, the Wikipedia article of the original novel this is based off of, and there's a lot more detail to his past, and it makes a lot more sense. And it would have been nice to have known that.
Yeah, true.
Because he would have gotten a little more character. I know Mandy's doing a decent job trying to convey any emotions or character, but
He's doing a better job with his accent than
Even
James Spader. We know that.
just in the first sentence of the Wikipedia article, it's like, this is what happened to him and why he's on the road.
it leaves it ambiguous though, which I think kind of works for what he was going for with this
It's
movie.
Yeah, it
clearly
did-
what the filmmakers wanted to do.
Yeah, it did give a little mystery to him,
It was the way of the filmmaker.
generally speaking.
I didn't love that, but it's fine. You know, I think if it works for people, you know, like if you liked it better. That's the design of ambiguity.
Well, okay, let's start with the guy that directed this
Mm-hmm.
was a sculptor.
Yeah.
Like he was just mainly an artist, and so this was really the only film project he's ever done.
Yeah, the other things
I
that
guess
he's done
it's safe because
since,
it's dialogue driven.
you just never seen any of them.
Yeah.
Name's Philip Haas. So yeah, he's more of an artist.
He's not like Tom Ford, like moonlighting as a director. So that's for
Mhm.
sure. It's
Uh,
weird because I wonder if the book has as long dialogue passages as this does, because before I even knew that this did the research and knew that this was based on a book, I thought it was based on a play. There's like, it's a lot of dialogue, a lot of monologues, and there's only like sparse locations throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, it could be set on stage easily, because then the main focus of the film is they eventually have to build this wall. Like I said, it's a straight wall. They're not making it fancy. So you could have that cutting, bisecting the stage. You could have it as a metaphor for what's going on in their lives together, or
That's
against
exactly
the people holding them, that sort of thing. You know, I could definitely see it as a set design play.
But to get into where the wall came from, we have to begin at the beginning, as they say. So you got Mandy Patinkin driving down the road in his little red BMW, and he comes across, wandering out of the woods aimlessly, a bloodied James Spader.
He just picks him up,
looking like a catatonic Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Then the movie just takes off from there like a rocket.
James Spader's doing maybe the worst Ratso Rizzo impression I've heard in a while.
But then he just gets into the car. Mandy Patinkin just lets him get into the car, and it's like, I'm heading to New York. He's like, that's fine. And then Spader unleashes this like 3-minute monologue about how he got there and like the nature of chance. What am I watching all of a sudden?
Yeah, and not cutting away from him or getting Mandy's reaction.
No, it's
interjections at all.
It's just a one shot with Mandy in the foreground, and I'm like, but that's what leads me to believe that it could be a great play, because it's just like all of these artsy monologues. Eventually they get to New York, and then they're going to separate for a second, but the whole time he's trying to convince Mandy.
This was my first major problem with the movie, is that leap of character inconsistency where you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to trust this guy that came out of the woods.
Yeah.
The dude in blood saying that he's going to a poker game at somebody's house that I've never met. I've never met this guy before, and he seems outwardly shady the whole time he's talking.
You never go to a second location. That's the
You never go to a second location.
It's fun. Like part of the
persuasive somehow.
Yeah, part of the backstory when before he got found in the woods was like he apparently like the last game he was at was like they got robbed. Mm-hmm. And like the whole time, for the first 30 minutes of the movie, I thought like Mandy Patinkin was the guy that robbed and like kind of felt bad and was like, yeah, no, I'll help you win your money back.
That's what I thought at first.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's got all these little.
Don't write a better movie, Jimmy.
Yeah,
but that's the beauty of the ambiguity is like you don't know. These people may have had a past. You don't know if he actually knows someone or if he is the guy.
Yeah, my guess was the place they were going was James Spader was going to seek revenge on the people that had robbed him at the first location that he was at.
Yeah,
so I thought he knew these were the money rollers and stuff.
But he does mention, I forget how it comes to be that he's playing with these guys. I don't know if it was like in relation to that game or just a way to make his money back.
I think he heard they were dupes. Maybe at that last game, or just in general along his travels.
I think this goes along with what Tristan's saying. Like, there's a fine line between ambiguity and being deliberately elliptical to the point of kind of being frustrating because you got story lapses, which I think is what this is. Like, the storytelling isn't as fluid as it should be or lucid. So it's actually stuff like that where you're just like, I'm not quite sure the connection here.
It's actually why I like the second half. Once they're actually building the wall, it's just the two guys, really. So,
right.
It feels better to develop their characters there. You get an idea of these two guys that are going to dupe them eventually, that you think are dupes. They're basically supposed to be pushovers in poker, but once the two go there, the plan that Jack thinks he's hatching does not go even close to as well as he expected. There's a little weirdness in there because Jim wanders away from the poker game because he's not part of it. And Jack thinks that was his good luck charm because he's doing well, Jim is there. But as soon as it goes south, it never goes north again. And that's how they get stuck. They owe a lot of money to these people and then are told that they need to build a wall.
Yeah, no, the poker game was run by Joel Grey and Charles Durning as Willie Stone and Bill Flower.
Did you see their names? I didn't realize their last names until Stone and flour.
Yeah, well, they mention the names, and also there's a sheet of stationery when the contract comes out that has the thing at the top.
Flour
and they're just
stone,
two business partners who won the lottery. And so like that's why they're rich. And so they're talking about suddenly becoming insanely wealthy and what they could do with all of that. And there's all this exposition where they're just like, oh, we bought a castle over in Europe, but we didn't keep it over there. We like had it taken apart brick by brick to bring over here just because we could.
And they don't want to rebuild that castle. They just want a wall.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to build a wall. It's just a monument to building a wall, basically. Like, it's such a ridiculously over-the-top wealthy thing to do just because you can.
Yeah, the hubris of rich people. I mean,
they go into a weird, quirky, Charlie Kaufman-esque detour when they Joel Grey shows the diorama.
That's the weirdest I'm talking about.
In New York.
Yeah.
He's got like a serial killer train set in his,
He's like, this is just this moment, including this flashpoint in my life.
This is me and my wife. What happened, everybody?
And kill the wives for the insurance money? Who knows?
And like how like it shows how like delusional or like weird, like just his psyche, how off it is like when in his like little diorama, he's got a little section in the corner where there's like his ideal society just in there, and in the prison that he has in this like little town that he's built, like all the prison guards are happy and they're delighted to serve their penance to society. And then just like, you know, at the tail end of like showing that part of the thing, there's like there's a firing squad, just like maybe a little foreshadowing, who knows,
just in case.
The thing though is once that set comes out, then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, is this sort of like I always think there's some sort of supernatural element hidden, like these guys are really just like, they literally made a deal with the devil and now they're like controlling fate as closely as they can with this little dollhouse that he made.
I mean, there is a little bit of that
as the events continue, and they force these guys to build the wall to pay back their gambling debt. Like that's the whole thing. That's why they end up out in the field. But as they're building the wall, you see shots of him building the teeny tiny wall where they're building the wall with each individual brick on this model. And it's like,
because they have a model of their own property within this utopian diorama he's built.
It gets very meta for a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are they just controlling everything? And then
it's funny you bring up the devil part. Apparently they do also explain that more in the book. It's not just a castle that they're sort of recreating. It's not just a random wall in the novel. It's supposed to recreate the Wailing Wall from Jerusalem, which makes a little more sense why they'd want to do something. They want to like have their own version of something rather than just nothingness. But I think for this, like you said earlier, Corey, they sort of want to do their own thing within this film to maybe separate it from the novel, even though Paul Auster, the novelist, helped work on this. So I don't know if he wanted to do something to separate it or...
Sounds like a lot of the nuance was lost in the translation.
That's what I'm thinking, but how do you do that when you're the author itself is part of the screenwriter team, you know?
Well, it might be a little bit like, you know, if they wanted Mandy Patinkin to be more of a strong silent type, they're going to tell him what the backstory is so that he can use that in his performance rather than, you know, it's like how in the Harry Potter movies when Alan Rickman knew Snape's ultimate ending before anyone else did.
That's true.
That's true, but then at the same time, the movie's not shy with dialogue, so you could split that in there. It's actually very profuse with dialogue to the point where it might be a little overwritten.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know.
I mean, you only have two main characters. You got to fill in that space.
It's clear that they wanted some sort of mystery to the wall, to those guys. They don't show up again in the novel either, like they don't in the film. Other than you see his hand moving on the diorama.
Yeah,
but
we should mention who appears mostly in the second half, but he's briefly in the first half, which is
plays
I had
Calvin
it.
Murks, played by Emmet Walsh.
Emmet Walsh.
He's like the groundskeeper
I had it and then you
slash
asked.
security guards
I was about to say E.G. Marshall, but I know that one.
slash
Yeah.
gopher, and he's like the voice of the other two for the remainder of the film, because once they get sent out to the field, like you never see
Flower or Stone again.
Flower or Stone again. See,
Again, it's ambiguous, it's inconclusive. I know you like that part of it.
and this is but no, here's where some crazy theories come up. What if Calvin was behind the whole thing?
What if they never existed? What if they're all in his mind?
But it's actually just right. Or they were just like other gamblers that Calvin had tricked, and he's just like playing the role of the
Honestly,
I don't know, but the boss has said so.
That sounds better than what actually
if
happened.
they had revealed that, I would have liked that better.
Yeah.
I needed a little bit of something at the end of this.
Yeah.
I needed a little bit of a wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was very like
Just kind of ambles along, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
it kind of ambles along, much like James Spader on the road,
or Mandy at the end.
Mandy. Well, yeah.
Maybe he was faking. Maybe he didn't really die.
Now, the other thing is as part of their indentured servitude, they have an agreement that they can order supplies and entertainment and food and all that stuff. They got to survive. And then at one point,
There's a hitch to
they invite or ask for the company of
a lady.
An Atlantic City whore.
Lady.
Named Tiffany, played by Samantha Mathis.
So this is her second movie in '93.
Right.
Princess Daisy returns.
Yeah. And then they have they have a party or whatever, and then it's just for that scene, it was actually kind of like because Spader's talking about how not the real reason that they're there, but just grifting as usual. Talking about how they're millionaires who are just running this contractor project for these other millionaires.
This is my favorite scene for a couple of reasons. Not just Samantha Mathis is in it, but like you just said, James Spader is able to show his acting chops. It's why he was a good gambler.
Right.
And then you also learn that Mandy Patinkin can play the piano and doesn't want to have sex with her. So he's trying to be faithful, sort of, to his ex-wife. And it just builds character. And Jimmy was saying to me as we progressed through the film, he's like, I like that we're getting tidbits of Mandy's character's life. So that might be the best part of the film. You don't really need or get anything from Jack.
Yeah.
But Jim is the focus. You're obviously interested.
There's a little dark undertones that I got from it, from that scene and throughout the movie, because part of the thing is Mandy Patinkin's character, his daughter, he's regularly writing her, and apparently he's getting letters back from her. But every time I see that, I was like, I wonder if the old old man that's basically their guard dog is just faking those letters and just here's some false hope. There you go.
Oh, this will be funny. How about she puts kisses in glitter?
Or you even find out he's got a grandson later on in the movie. Maybe he has his grandson write the letters for them.
He's a spy.
Because you're it would be more authentic if you have a kid write a letter.
I feel like we're filling in gaps that just aren't.
No, that's we're filling in the little mortars in between the mortar in between the bricks.
God damn it.
This is another theory I had at this point. This might just be because we're watching this in 2023, but in that one scene, I caught a possible character thing that Mandy was gay and was partially he had grown attached to Jack for a bit through that, but was just he didn't say anything about it, whatever, because when he doesn't have sex with Tiffany, it was just one of those, he's like, no, I'm good for the night. And it was just he was just being nice, but it could be read as, no, you two have fun. I'm going to go sulk in the other room for a bit.
Mm-hmm. I could see that, especially when he acts so viscerally to a man he just met dying, possibly.
And he literally, when he takes the cake out, he's like singing
Mm-hmm.
operatically. And
I was singing, not playing piano. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, he could probably still do that, but
Yeah.
there was
I
no
just
piano in
assumed
the
because I
trailer.
know Mandy Patinkin can actually play.
You jumbled your memory circuits.
It's just
You silly robot, you.
just adding these little character things because it wasn't there. Like and that's, I don't know. I like the
Yeah.
ambiguity there, but
Yeah.
and you only ever see him pull out one picture of presumably him and his ex-wife. It's like a bookmark in a book that he's reading.
Which, by the way, is a Paul Auster novel.
Right. One of the 2 bits of trivia on the IMDb page.
Mm-hmm.
How self-indulgent.
I could tell from when he was sitting on the porch. I was like, I bet that's a fucking novel by the guy making this.
Yeah.
It's something I would do. So
But then the film takes a dark turn. Sure.
at that point, sure.
Well,
Yeah.
no.
It was dark up
Well,
Yeah.
darker turn.
Yeah.
Well, no, because Jack gets just has enough, and they start digging a hole at the fence at the edge of the property.
Well, why does he have enough? Because they get that new contract.
Oh, right, that's right.
And
they paid off.
Well, it was not a new contract. It's a
They
bill.
tacked on the fees
Yeah.
that they were using for what they thought were gratuities.
Yeah. So when they set up the situation, Jim had planned out that, okay, this is how much we're going to make per hour because we're going to be legitimate about this. So we're going to do all these. And then they said, you're going to have this place to stay. You're going to get food. You're going to get clothing if you need it. It's supplies to dig and build the wall. So they understood, well, if you're doing that, why would we have to pay for it? So then when they get that, it's like, okay, well, you finish something in life and something else shits on you. You know, it's the metaphor for like, you'll never get ahead because there's always something around the corner, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if the asshole billionaires are teaching them a lesson or just being dicks for the sake of being dicks, or it is legitimately how billionaires think.
They did drunkenly wander up to the mansion and throw a rock through their window.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have been just a petty, like, fine, you're going to do that. We're going to charge you for all this because the broken window was included in the.
I think that's the case, actually. I think they weren't going to do that until the window breaks.
Yeah.
That also is sort of like what happens, say, Shawshank Redemption. There's always like, you try to get out of jail and you're always pushed back because of bad behavior, but you did
extenuating
one thing in 20
circumstances.
years. Yeah, like there's always something that you're like, well, I was good except for this one moment in 20 years. Well, here's another 5 years, you know, something like that.
Yeah. And they kept adding to the like technically they served their 50 days and then it was like, no, we're just going to keep you here because you need to finish building this wall.
Basically the unfairness of life.
Right. And so Jack tries to escape, and as usual, Jim is just like, no, you go on without me. I'll see you in a couple months. I got to be a man of honor and finish this job.
It's romantic.
And Jack's like, all right, fuck off. And then he just like, he literally like, just walks off. You won't remember me at all. And then he leaves.
Yeah, goodbye.
And then a pickup truck drives by with a little kid waving in the back. Seemingly innocuous, right? So then Jim goes back to building the wall by himself as the rest of the day, wakes up the next day, and he sees Jack lying broken, beaten, left for dead in the middle of the field. How he got there, you don't know.
It's kind of perfect.
Obviously he was caught and dragged back. Presumably,
I think it was suicide first.
This is why it feels kind of supernatural, actually. Like I could see your bent on that because he's so perfectly laid out. And it reminded me of Lost, or even the recent film Old, when they try to get off the beach that makes you old. They're just sent back into the middle of the beach.
Yeah.
it's sort of like that Lost. You can't escape because there might be a force field keeping a magnetic field keeping everyone on the island. So it's almost as if, are there 20 people that can guard them and there's really just one that we see played by Emmet Walsh? Or is it that it's just how life is, where you try to escape your confines and you're never gonna rise up in your class, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, on some level, I think he just fucked up and got caught.
Yeah.
And they did not want him to leave, and so they splayed him out. He was technically still alive at that point, though. And then they say that they're going to take him to a hospital. So they take him to the hospital.
And Chris Penn shows up as Willie's grandson.
Yes. So they throw him in the Jeep, shuttle him off to the hospital. And then a couple days later, they tell him that he magically got better and walked out of the hospital.
Perfect.
Nah, he's dead.
Yeah.
Right. So
maybe he's dead.
It gets
honestly, knowing his character, he could have.
And that's the thing.
It's ambiguity.
You're led to believe that, well, he could, like, he's done that in the past.
But he picked them up
but the way that the old man just shrieked around the answer when like Mandy Patinkin like pressed him on, was like, no, because like he has a certain way about him when he wants to deflect from whenever the other two, like Mandy Patinkin and James Spader, like try to like press him on anything. So like he always has like something to just change the conversation, not answer, or just be polite about it and whatever. So like yeah.
That's why
the ambiguity is like, I don't know, like the ambiguity doesn't seem to be there for me when I saw that scene.
That's why I think Emmet Walsh is the MVP of this movie, because he has the best range that he has to portray, like trying to lie to Jim about Jack's death. You can pick up on his quirks, you know. I think that's the best part about it.
Yeah. And then like when you realize that like he's not all that of a nice old guy, despite how often like he tries to be polite, especially when he shows up after getting decked in the face with a gun on his hip. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not taking any more precautions. It's like, this thing is a lethal situation.
He's the definition of malicious compliance.
Yo.
Anyway, Jack ends up coming to a head himself and can't accept that he'll be stuck in this jail anymore. He's finished the wall. He doesn't want to stay. What else can he do? And they say that he's accomplished everything, so you can leave. But let's go out for a drink. And so, of course, you think, is this going to be on my bill? Is this a way to trap me here again? That's what I was thinking.
He brought that up, though.
Yeah.
He said, I can't afford to go drinking.
Right.
He's like, I'm good. I appreciate the offer, but no.
Right. You can't have good faith anymore with these people. Yeah. So they still go, because what else is he going to do?
Yeah. Well, the old man said he'll put it on his tab, so that way there won't be any debt on Mandy Patinkin's character.
Which also leads you to believe that does he owe the billionaire something, and he actually wasn't just hired to be a groundskeeper? Has he been there for a longer time?
True. But these are all great questions that never get answered.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Corey loved this movie.
You know, it doesn't.
The Shaggy Dog story.
You don't need to answer every single question.
None of them were answered, Jeff. None.
This is not.
None of these questions were answered.
Halloween remake. That's fine.
The movie ends on a whimper. Why don't you tell them how it ends?
But it wraps up in a nice little.
It didn't, though.
Twist of metal.
You thought so?
So
it is how the novel ends.
Jack.
It's not resolved.
No, not Jack. Jim manages to talk himself into, because he's playing in classic gambler
That's
fashion.
classic
He
Jim
gambles.
fashion.
Classic Jim move. He, makes
That's
a bet
Jim.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time.
on a pool game with Calvin's son-in-law at the bar.
The late
And he
Christmas.
tries to, and then he wins, and the son tries to pay him, and he's like, no, I'm good. He's like, well, I owe you one. I owe you a favor. Just anytime you need something, just ask. And he's like, well,
Whoa.
funny you should say that.
I need a ride.
And he's like, let me drive my car back. Oh, that was the other
We
thing.
established that he lost his car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
lost
never
his
said
car in the
that.
poker game. In the
That was
first
a
one.
last ditch thing in the actual poker game where
Yeah.
Durning and Grey take Spader. At the last minute, Mandy's like, "Take my car," and they're like, "You'll have no way to leave."
Well, this is not take
Yeah.
his car, but like he's leveraging his car as his last bit of his last gambit,
That's
essentially.
the right way to say it. By the way, that was the car my mom had in the 90s.
Oh wow.
How'd she
Like,
get?
Red, and yeah, you never know. Maybe she won in a poker game when I was 6. That's not the car. I
How
didn't have the
suspicious
set
of her.
car from the
Wow.
Music a Chance, but
Uh,
it drove like it, I'm sure.
That's funny.
The seat broke for the passenger at one point.
I'm suspicious of Joy now.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because after he manages to get in the driver's seat, you see him slowly increasing his speed on they're going down those dark country roads until he's going 100 miles an hour and just sort of veers off into the woods. Everything final and twisted metal. Calvin and his son-in-law are presumably.
no, they're dead. They're very much dead.
Wikipedia
I
said
heard
it.
I heard their lungs gurgle blood as through their last breath.
It was
No, that didn't
a
happen.
catastrophic implosion. Yeah. Anyway, so they're presumably dead. Mandy's is walking in a similar fashion to how he found Jack at the beginning of the movie.
It's poetry.
Yeah,
Rhymes.
poetry in motion.
It's full circle.
And then he gets picked up on the road by none other than Paul Auster himself.
Oh, is that really the author?
That's the
It is.
author, yeah.
It's the author.
Which is also the most self-indulgent thing you can do.
He's like, I'm going to New York. Is that okay? He's like, I'm actually going to Minnesota, but sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Have you ever played poker?
And then they drive off into the distance.
Well, the thing
He
is,
doesn't say that.
he says when they get to New York, he's got to make a phone call. So it's either he's gonna call he's either gonna call his daughter or he's
That's
calling
what
the
he's doing.
police.
And he's like, can you give
He's
me
gonna call his daughter.
He's calling his daughter. He don't care.
Sister. It's his sister. It's not his daughter. It's his sister.
Well, his
Not that
sister
really
has his
matters too
daughter.
much, but
His sister has his daughter.
Yeah, his sister has his daughter.
So you
Yeah.
can say
So he has to
either one.
call his
Oh,
sister
that's-
to talk to his daughter.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the novel, they make it so that his wife left him and took the daughter to Chicago where his sister is. And he had an abusive relationship with his father. So she understands why he was getting angry as a firefighter in Boston. And so his anger issues were getting the better of him. And he has come to the conclusion that he needs to drift to clear his mind. And he thinks that he'll eventually show up where his sister is and rekindle with his ex-wife. But you don't know that that's going to happen or not. So that's what's extra in the novel.
Okay. And that also comes to why he put 90,000 miles on a brand new car.
Right. Because he has to think for a while to make sure that he's good again for his family.
Because they're both unreliable narrators in that their story keeps changing even with each other, which I like. But
yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
There's good parts to this, but
Sure.
Overall, it was an adventure. 65 million years in the no.
Yeah.
Well,
No, that
life
was
found
good.
a way.
Yes, life found a way.
Oh God, Jeff Goldblum was the
Gambling debt found a way.
Hey, Hammond, how did you build this park? We had 2 guys build all the walls.
Oh my
yeah.
God! Wait a minute, because one of the old guys looks like
How'd you survive
Could
that
be.
car wreck? Chaos theory. Chaos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's what's this thing called? Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. I want to talk about Charles Durning for a second.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys knew about him serving in World War II.
I knew
Did
about
you know
that.
this?
I did not.
Yeah, I wrote a couple facts in our notes, but I just wanted to bring up how cool he was because he apparently was one of the first waves to land on Omaha Beach for D-Day.
Oh wow.
He also participated in the Battle of Bulge. He had a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and 3 Purple Hearts, and then decided to become an actor when he came back to the States and was like, "Yeah, I'll try this out." And then just was in Shakespeare shows for like a decade before he was ever in any film.
Great.
He's just a cool American.
Wow.
He
Apparently he's buried at Arlington, one of the few actors to get that. So just
Wow.
was friends
This-
with Burt Reynolds, and I heard
Crazy.
Bert's dad served in almost the same platoon as him.
oh yeah,
Yeah, so they commiserate over that. That was
that's
interesting.
cool. Yeah. I just everything I've seen about him in like all his other films, you're like, he's just this fun-loving guy. And you're like, he served in the heart of World War II.
Yeah.
So, he really saw it. And Joel Grey is still with us. He just turned 91.
He was in The Old Man, the TV show with Jeff Bridges.
Yeah,
and-
so he's still acting,
He
and
was-
he just won a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Tonys. He's one of the biggest Broadway actors ever. So the two of them are just cool.
father of Jennifer Grey.
Yep. So
It's
It's a shame we didn't see enough of them in it.
I know I wanted more of both of them. But I like all 4 actors. I think, and Emmet Walsh. I like all 5 actors.
Yeah.
This is probably the best that Walsh has had to feast on in a role. Like I said,
You don't think Blood Simple?
I am not as excited as people are in that.
Yeah, no,
That's definitely he was the originator, or at least the first person to get nominated or win for the Indie Spirits for Best Actor, actually, for Blood Simple. So all these guys have some claim to fame, like a neat little thing. But anyway, how do we grade the film?
I'd give it a C+.
Yeah, would we continue their service, or would we dump them?
I probably give it a C. I think Mandy Patinkin's good. I think James Spader's cartoonish to a distracting degree, and what might seem like virtues to me just felt like they were kind of gutting the source material and not leaving the kind of bare bones. And the dialogue's just purple prose. At a certain point, people are just talking for the sake of pontificating, which really was annoying. So yeah, I was a huge fan of this.
Mm-hmm. I'd probably give it a C as well. If I had the choice to see this or Jurassic Park, what do you think I'd do?
Jurassic Park.
I mean, a 6 for sure.
well, when you're
Wow.
9,
At 36, also for sure.
What do you
A
think?
minus.
Oh god,
I
it's
knew
gotta be
it.
contrarians.
This is a very Jeff film.
It
Well, it's
But
very it's stage bound, so
right.
Yeah.
See, that's what I saw, because I kept seeing the potential of, like, if you're just imagining that this is someone took a stage play and put it outside. I don't know. It was, I don't like the Flower and Stone kind of disappear and then you never hear from them again. But that was really my only qualm with it, because everything else is like it's pretty straightforward for the most part, but leaves enough room for interpretation.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be worse if they just sort of like explained everything away.
Yes.
Well, I don't know
Yeah.
everything explained, but I feel like the audience really has to do a lot of heavy lifting.
They tie, well, not really, because they tied up a lot of things, like, because the little kid that I talked about with that was waving ends up being Calvin's grandson, and you're like, oh, so he saw them, so that ties that whole end together. So he's not just mysteriously dropped in the middle of the field. It's like
It probably was Calvin.
right. And
you have to
realize,
assume things. So Corey's just saying that's a bad thing.
yeah.
And you're saying it's a good thing.
Well, certain things.
I think there's a
can-
level.
It worked for this.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost as if it was by chance.
Oh my God. I think there's a good
Creative
aspect
monster.
of ambiguity, but it's to a regular audience, this is too smart.
Right.
And that's what I'm thinking about.
It's
I
not for
liked it
everyone.
fine, but I just was thinking like, is this a hidden gem? And not for like our audience, not for most audiences, but because we like stuff like this sometimes, I think if it catches like it did for you, Jeff, I think it works.
Yeah.
And it almost did for me, but I sort of agree more with Corey. Not like I need everything explained, but I wanted it to be paced better. That's the thing I didn't like about it. Like,
Sure.
okay, I get what's going to happen. This is all going to be a metaphor for rich versus poor.
It did meander.
So,
but it's not a popcorn flick, but it's something like I do think it qualifies as a hidden gem because it's, I didn't know this existed and I actually liked it. But
sure, yeah, then it worked.
Yeah,
there you go.
But again, I agree that it's not for everyone. Beatnik James Spader, unrecognizable in his current form.
And I actually liked him a lot, and unlike Corey, I thought he worked.
Yeah.
But in the context of this film.
But the thing is, if he's playing a grifter and a professional gambler, like he's gonna be that type of character and like misleading and obnoxious to sort of like dissuade. So it fit the way that he was doing it. Performance-wise, it might have made it a little weird, but I think it worked in character. Whereas, Mandy Patinkin was the strong silent type who you're never like, because there are two types of poker players. There's the guy that bluffs by like making a big show of everything, and there's the guy that has an absolute stoic poker face, and you're never quite sure what he's thinking.
Right.
I'll totally admit, maybe I went into this.
That's the dynamic that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Halfway through the movie, I thought, is this going to be like a precursor to Rounders? And then it went off in a different direction. So maybe it's my fault for having different expectations of where I thought the trajectory of the story was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like you're saying, Jeff, I thought I was like, oh, okay. So I could see where the Matt Damon and Edward Norton characters maybe evolve from these two.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously Mandy Patinkin's more sensible than Matt Damon one.
Mm-hmm.
And James Spader is the Weasley Edward Norton one.
Yeah, I actually thought instead of them being forced to build a wall, I thought they would keep trying to play poker games. And so then at some point Mandy would play poker. And then he's better at it. And you always thought James Spader would be the one that would win because he's the one coming in saying he could. Yeah, right. That's what a weasel does. So
I mean, from the first 30 minutes, I was expecting a heist movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will give it that. It never reveals what it's going to do. So
it's not predictable. I will give it.
If you're into that, then the unpredictability is one of his strongest suits.
Yeah. I kind of was hoping it was like would have been a little more psychologically thrilling, especially when it got to the bit where like the tensest part that I felt like would have been like they could have leaned in a little bit more a couple times throughout the movie, but they didn't, was like when James Spader's character was like superstitious about like the one of the little figurines that Mandy Patinkin stole from the Panorama, and it was like the figurines of the two billionaires when they got their lottery tickets, like because that was just displayed in there because they wanted to commemorate it, because he's a immortalize it. So like Mandy Patinkin's like, you think this thing has real like power over us, like, or like as if it was like magic, like because James Spader's a gambler, he believes in luck, so like he thought it was unlucky or just bad luck or just whatever superstitious the thing that was going on through his head about taking it. And then like Mandy Patinkin's like, no, this isn't a thing. So he just throws it in a fire, and then like things get worse.
Like a voodoo doll.
Yeah, like a voodoo doll. So like it would have been cool if like little more moments like that happened and it started getting at one of them more than the other, and like would have built more tension. And like maybe they would have had a fight with each other a couple more times. And then like would have made up, and then
So
that
you're
would have
saying
made
we
James
didn't
Spader's
spend enough
death
time
so
with
much
them?
worse. Yeah, a little more time.
They
I
never.
don't know.
Well, here's the thing. After
Who
he
knows?
burns the thing in effigy, that's around the time that Calvin's like, well, the bosses are leaving town. Yeah, and you never see them again after they
like, did they die?
like
Maybe they were the two tokens in there.
Calvin was the mastermind. That's my theory. But
Gotta
anyway,
break the
yes.
cycle.
A-. I loved it. It was good.
Yeah.
Punctuate it.